You are now entering Nick and Mello's hyperspace.
I'm Carmelo, and Star Wars made me cry when Chopper held the hand of Hera after Kanan's death. That was just a beautiful, beautiful moment in Star Wars Rebels.
I'm Nick, and Star Wars made me cry when Order 66 was happening with Rex and Ahsoka removes Rex's helmet and tells him that he is a good soldier, just like the rest of his brothers that are there currently up against. Beautiful, shows the humanity of Ahsoka and the relationship that those two built over the series. It's wonderful.
Totally agree. In a journey through hyperspace, we examine everything and anything Star Wars from the point of view of two lifelong fans, one young, one old, who came together through the will of the Force.
And in this episode, we are going to kind of have a little bit of a therapy session. Carmelo and I are going to talk about moments in Star Wars that made us emotional and even cried. As you noticed in our intro, we both hit on important moments for us because we're big fans of Clone Wars and Rebels.
And you don't know this, but we started recording the show and we forgot to press the button record. And when Nick started describing the scene with Ahsoka and Rex, I actually started getting teary-eyed.
It was so authentic.
It was really beautiful and authentic, but we had not pressed.
We did not capture it, so you just have to believe us.
You're just gonna have to believe us. You're just gonna have to believe us. Nick, one of the things that I found really interesting when I was making the list of the things that made me emotional in Star Wars is that most of it is not from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
That my list is from television, my list is from fiction, but it's not. I mean, I did find some that are in the movies, but when I was going through the movies, I was like, I mean, that was moving, that was, but not like
right.
That really happened for me on television, and that has happened to me several times in fiction, and so that was an interesting discovery for me.
Mine are kind of split. So, but you said fiction. I don't have any from fiction. I had one that I considered. I guess it's harder for me. I have to visually see what's going on for it to move me like that. It's a little more difficult with novels.
Interesting.
Comics, same thing. It's a little more difficult. There have been some moments, especially in the High Republic, which we'll touch on in another episode. Some of those were like, wow, gut punches that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, obviously, at a later date. But yeah, a lot of those
you can certainly talk about High Republic in here if you want to. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
But the last 50 pages of Dark Disciple.
That's the one that mine was like, wow.
That was just gut-wrenching. That
was the one that I considered.
Overwhelmed. I mean, I remember wiping my tears out because I couldn't see the words to continue reading the end of the book.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. If anybody watching doesn't know about this is a novel set during the Clone Wars. It actually used to be a series of scripts from the Clone Wars. And Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos, the Jedi, are sort of the protagonists of this novel, and it is a surprising and beautiful novel, very moving. I love that novel. It's probably one of my favorite novels of canon.
So
from the ones that I have read. But those few pages, Nick, I was
the same way.
It was a mess.
I remember reading it, and slight spoilers, someone dies. And I was sitting there and I read it, and I get a little wet in my eyes. And after I finished the book, I just had to sit there for a minute and be like, damn.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
You're right. It is one of those novels that you finish the novel and you need a moment.
You're like, whoa.
You're sort of like, okay, I got to process this now.
Yeah. I sat there for a good 5 minutes.
It's a beautiful moment. And for me, that's one of the ones in fiction that I found like actively emotional and moving. I chose the Hera and Chopper for the beginning of our show because I have always found Chopper really annoying. And so it was really nice having this sort of moment of tenderness, of compassion between Chopper and Hera about the loss of Kanan. And so it sort of would make sense if it was Ezra. It sort of would make sense if it was Sabine, but it sort of made it more impactful for me that it would be Hera's droid, that it would be Chopper, that it would be a droid.
Yeah.
That would be sort of making that connection, because to me, artificial life is life in Star Wars.
I was going to say
droids are sentient beings, not ancient beings. Some of them might be ancient, but sentient is what I'm trying to say.
I'll spoil one of the ones on my list. Was actually another moment similar to that. Was with, and this is a little, depends on the context, because we knew the real life reasoning behind this was Princess Leia or General Organa's death in Rise of Skywalker. R2 being there and his reaction was another one that got me. Because that's the first time we see Leia. She is with R2, and then he is there with her at her death, and it's just impactful. Obviously, for reasons outside of the movie, Carrie Fisher passing away, why that was needed. But to me, it was still moving. The death of Leia was one of the best deaths to me handled in all the films. I enjoyed that.
Oh, wow. No, I liked it very much. I didn't get emotional in that moment. My Leia moment that made me teary is in Last Jedi. When there is that connection between Kylo and Leia, and Kylo hesitates, but the TIE fighters go ahead and shoot, and Leia explodes out of that glass window, and I lost it in the movie theater.
Yeah,
just lost it in the movie theater.
I'm getting chills thinking about it.
My friend Rebecca leaned over and said, "Are you okay?" Because I think I was shaking the entire row seat. Oh my God, it was just I was just so overwhelmed.
That was
so overwhelmed.
Beautifully done by both actors.
And of course, we're watching the movie knowing that Carrie Fisher is dead, and so there are all of these things going through my head.
Right.
Oh my God, it was just too much.
Speaking of Leia, another one of her regarding her death was Chewbacca's reaction. That was another one that got me.
Oh yeah,
that hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
I think for me the reason why is because, like I said, we knew the context of the real world reason why Leia had to be cut from the movie. So
there's an element in there. That's true. That's
right.
True.
It's not necessarily the story, which it was sad, but I think the real world reason was kind of just as sad. It's like a farewell to Carrie Fisher.
I agree.
So
I agree. You mentioned the scene with Rex and Ahsoka. The one that got me is when Rex is trying to fight the urge to kill Ahsoka with the gun, and his head is shaking. And that moment, I was just, we know that they're alive. They both show up in Rebels, so it's not like anything horrible is going to happen. I'm not worried about that. I'm sort of worried about the anxiety and the fear and the horror that Rex finds in this urge to kill Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I found that just, oh my goodness.
Those
beautiful and moving.
Those two have such a great relationship, and we get to see it grow through the Clone Wars, and then their moment where they reunite in Rebels was emotional for a good reason.
Oh yeah. Oh, that hug. That hug.
It was awesome.
I just saw that hug like a week ago because I'm watching all of it again. I'm at the beginning of season 2, and it was sort of like this very composed Ahsoka walking over to Rex, and then whoa, a big hug. The 15-year-old girl just couldn't refuse hugging Rex. And that was beautiful.
And Rex is one of my favorite characters because of moments like that. He has a lot of impactful moments. And the one that I picked, the first time I watched it, I think that was the first time I'd actually got teary-eyed over a moment in Star Wars, and I don't know how long, a very long time. And
interesting.
It was cool. I was just not expecting that, and it was so touching. Like I said in the intro, it showed Ahsoka's difference than the other Jedi.
Right.
Then we get to see Rex kind of grappling with everyone, his family, basically. Everyone he knows is either going to die or they're going to kill him. And just the brief moment of Ahsoka trying to comfort him was like, that's impactful. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I thought it was just wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. This is very recent, but that little moment in Kenobi when Leia is holding the hand of Kenobi in the transport.
Mm. Yeah. Are you talking when they are getting chased from Vader? Or
they're getting, yes.
Okay.
Well,
or is it
when they're in the transport? It's before they go to the sort of rebel hideout.
Okay.
They're in transport together. There's other people in the spaceship. Oh boy, I'm getting old. I can't remember exactly the moment. But it's okay. A moment. It's the moment when Leia is saying, "I didn't mean to do this. I didn't mean to run away."
Yes.
And so Leia is sort of thanking Kenobi for saving her.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful moment. And of course, the other one that I have in my list is, of course, Grogu caressing Mando's face after he takes the helmet off at the end of season 2.
Yes. That was on my list, actually. Their goodbye was very.
Oh, that was just beautiful.
Their goodbye, I think, and that's just to me the testament of the how good the show is and how great the writing of that show is. We get the return of Luke Skywalker, and it's shocking because we weren't expecting it, and it was so cool and badass. But then it gets, to me, the best part of that episode was their goodbye.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that just shows how great of a writing that is. If you're making me care more about Grogu and Din than
of course
Luke Skywalker, it's
right.
I never thought I would say something like that, but it was so cool.
It was really beautiful.
It was awesome.
It was really beautiful. And so it's really interesting how there are all these television moments, both live action and animated, that those are the ones that get me. And it's just really interesting. I've been saying this for about a year now, but I think television and Star Wars belong.
Yeah.
Star Wars really works on television. Really does.
I think it's a testament because of the way TV is structured compared to a film. A film is so compacted, 2.5 hours. You have to fit a lot.
You're right.
In TV, like with Dan and Grogu or Rex and Ahsoka, we get to spend a lot of time with them and getting to see them interact and develop a relationship. So when those moments happen, it's even worse because we've spent so much time invested in them.
Right.
So when they do get ripped apart, it's like, damn.
Yes. No. You're totally right. And for me, this is not just something that happens with Mandalorian and live action. I think the animated shows did wonderful things.
Yeah.
Wonderful things. And so for me, Star Wars really arrives in television.
It does.
It sort of felt like in the movies, it was sort of the kernel for.
Yeah.
Sort of like the preamble for. And I know that, fans will burn my house now for saying that, but I think it's true.
I agree.
I think it's true. There's just something that really belongs in the way that it happens. Other moments for you?
Other moments. So let's talk a little bit about movies. I know you said you had more film and, more of the animated and TV series. I had a few movie moments.
Sure.
We talked about Leia's death. Another one from the same movie, I thought Ben Solo and Han Solo, his redemption, I thought was incredibly touching. I love that. One of my favorite redemptions in all the Star Wars. I just think it was beautifully, and I wasn't expecting it. It caught me completely off guard.
I was not expecting Han Solo to show up in Rise of Skywalker.
No, I wasn't either. And the whole conversation was such a wonderful homage to The Force Awakens, and it's just I think again, enough. We talked about this with the Kenobi episode we did about Leia's impact on Star Wars, and he even says in the line, Kylo Ren's dead, my son lives. Even if your mother's gone, her teachings, her philosophy, they live in you.
Right.
That's beautiful. Another one of mine, and I think it's probably a more popular one. I think a lot of people will say it, but it's Luke taking Vader's mask off at Return of the Jedi. That gets me a lot. The line that gets me the most is when he says, "I need to save you," and he says, "You already have."
Mm-hmm. That's pretty. Me. Yes,
that's wonderful.
I never cry, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, and I think now that we have all these movies and TV series and backstory for Luke and Anakin and the Skywalkers in general, I think it makes it even more impactful later.
Yes.
I mean, at the time,
yes,
it was impactful, but now to me, we have all this
You're
context.
Right. You're right. Now
It
that we
makes
have
it
the
even
prequel,
more.
now we have a prequels, we sort
And
of
the Clone
know
Wars, and
we know a lot
Yeah.
more. The other one that I had for the movies, and once again, this is because I'm teaching a Star Wars class now, I'm sort of looking at the movies with a slightly different eye, sort of looking for things to use in class.
Mhm.
And the death of Qui-Gon in
Mm.
Phantom Menace. I got really emotional this last time that I saw it a few months ago, of the sort of beautiful bonding that existed between Kenobi and Qui-Gon.
Mhm.
And the sort of, I don't know, this male camaraderie that existed between them, and this love that existed between them. I found that really emotional, knowing what I know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I felt that way when I first saw the movie back in 1999, but now it is a very emotional moment.
Like I said earlier, there's a lot of supplemental material now that kind of informs us of their relationship and what's to come. And yeah, I never thought that was a tearful moment for me, but it's impactful. I think it's moving.
Yeah.
But I do think, to me, I think it's more emotional for the part that gets me in that scene is his Qui-Gon telling him, "You have to train the boy." I think that's the part that moves me, because then that's kind of what informs Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship going forward, and that sparks their relationship and makes it impactful when they obviously have their falling out. So
this is the gay man in me, but I love when Qui-Gon is sort of caressing Kenobi's, maybe it's Kenobi caressing Qui-Gon's face. I can't remember now.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
it was just such a sort of an anti-toxic moment that I just found it really, really quite beautiful. I think what and I actually can't remember if I said this in the recording that we never recorded, or if I said it in this one or not, but I think what gets me teary in Star Wars is the human connection. I think that's why I chose a droid and a Twi'lek, because neither of them are human, technically speaking, but Star Wars sort of creates that sort of beautiful connection between them, and I think those are the moments that really impact me, that I find really, really emotional. Really beautiful stuff.
I can say the same with Rex and Ahsoka.
Yeah,
Rex is technically a clone, and then Ahsoka's a Togruta.
Yep.
So
the
same way.
I
wanted to touch on, sorry again, it just ran my mind when you were talking, the moment with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan again. Same movie when Anakin says to his mother, "Will I see you again?" And that, to me, I've noticed is becoming a recurring theme in Star Wars. We see it there. We see it with Kanan when he says, "I'll see you again," when he's blind, and then with
Leia
and Kenobi.
Yeah,
Will I see you again? And then, unfortunately, the next time they see that person, they're dying. So it's a precursor. So every time I hear that now, I'm thinking, great. Somebody's dying.
Somebody's dying.
Great. Thanks for the foreshadowing. I think you hit the heart of it, though, when you said that, even with characters that are not necessarily human, they feel real to us. And I think Star Wars does that better than almost anything.
It's beautiful.
We love awesome space battles and lightsaber duels.
Yeah, all that stuff is great.
But like we talked about in Kenobi, I wasn't interested in that. I was in it for the emotional moments, and I think that's the same reason why I watch Return of the Jedi. I don't watch it because Luke and Anakin's duel. I watch it because of the reaction of Luke and Vader, and same with all these other moments.
I think the moment that I started loving Clone Wars, it's when I started finding those moments, when it was more than just battles, more than just politics, but it was when I started realizing, oh no, this show is about the consequences of living during war.
Yeah.
And how it changes the people that have to suffer through it. The soldiers, the citizens, the senators, the pirates, everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that when you add that element sort of emotional, affective connection. That's when my heart skips a beat.
It's when it hits you in the gut. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why we continue to watch and read, and we hope for more of those moments. That's why.
Absolutely.
That's why.
It's really quite beautiful. All right. Thank you, Nick. This was fun.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, guys. You didn't watch me crying in the unrecorded version of this episode, but here's the proof. Here's the Kleenex that I use in the unrecorded version.
The physical evidence.
Because my eyes
It was
Nick
so
is
authentic.
describing this, and my eyes just turned red, and I started crying.
So emotional. And we only touched on some. There's so many more we can get to.
Oh, of course.
But those are some of our favorites, and I'm sure you guys maybe like some of those, and maybe have different ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Carmelo. I had fun as always.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.
Thanks, guys.